let's just jump right into it, I suppose, because we have a lot to cover. Um, when you log in with your community version for the first time, or if you're new to the platform, you'll see a couple of different things in here. So on the left-hand side, we have kind of the menu of different options that we can go through. We'll see some of this today, some of the different features that we have. Some of them might be grayed out. Those are things that are actually part of the enterprise version, but some of the options that are in here we'll go through as well, just to see how we can start to work with them. But with that being said, let's start with kind of the easiest way to get started, which is right in our search bar here. We can see there's a number of different ways we can start to search domains, IPs. We have kind of a smart menu search here that we want to use. So um, we'll pick we'll pick an easy domain to start with, nickroy.org. And actually, I go so fast. Let's back up just a tiny bit. One of the things you'll see is you're kind of typing in. We try to pick maybe where you want to land on based off of something like a domain that's in there, or if you're starting with an IP. Um, we give you a little bit different of an option to see, where some of these things, different facets of the platform that you may want to jump to, as opposed to kind of looking at all the data that we've collected on something. So we have this nice little help here, great easy way to get started. Um, in my case, go a little bit slower this time. I'm going to start with a domain. I'm going to start with my favorite domain to use, nickroy.org. We can see there's a number of things if we want to jump into things like the who is data, um, screenshots, similar domains. There's all sorts of ways we can jump right into this, but um, generally what I always start with kind of the total view, because this is where it's going to bring in all of that DNS data we're collecting. It's going to bring in all that web scan data that we're gathering as well. And as part of this, as we're going through, we can see at the top we have our highlights here. So one of the things we see kind of at the top, PA-DNS infrastructure. PA-DNS is our term for passive aggressive DNS. So again, this is where we're going out and kind of forcibly doing this re-resolution against all of these domains that we're collecting. So I can see kind of high level there, what do I have as far as different DNS records. We do some other interesting things. We want to really understand what's new and what's changing across the internet as well. So we also see things like infrastructure variants here. So we can see in this case, actually rotating across a couple of different ASNs, a couple of different IPs. In this case, just one name server, but as part of just my site's hosted on Netlify. So it is rotating a little bit, but a lot of times we see where if we're looking at something malicious, they're actually rotating a lot more frequently. They're trying to kind of hide where their infrastructure is. So one of the reasons we want to do our data collection this way, so we can really start to understand kind of what's changing over time. And then we also have kind of the highlights here as well. So not only do we have all the DNS data, we have this web scanner we're going out and scanning. So we can see the last time this was scanned, a little bit about the title, the header servers returned. We have a screenshot if we want to look at that. But really the goal of Total View is, kind of bringing together all this data that we're collecting here. Now, as we're going through, one of the things that we'll also see is that we can also kind of pivot through some different options in here as well. So usually what we start with is kind of PA DNS tab. Again, this is going to be all of our DNS records here. So we can see a number of your A records, your C names, name servers, MX records. And we have kind of the history here as well. So if I want to look back, first seen, last seen dates are included. And in this case, mine's kind of just wherever Netlify is rotating their infrastructure through, we can see everything that's out there. But we can always kind of scroll back. We can see the history of a domain. The other thing we can do from here is there's a lot of pivots we can do in the platform. So in this case, if I want to maybe pivot on one of the IPs in here, this is where I can click on. Generally, anything in blue is a pivot. So if I take something like this IP here, if I want to pivot on that, this is going to bring up our context menu. And what that's going to do is give me a couple different options. We'll try to hit on all of these today, but generally what I always kind of start with is I can pivot into total view. So for an IP address, if I want to see things like all the other A records, which this one is going to have a ton of them, but and kind of pivot around between domains and IPs in the platform. So we have all of our DNS data that we're bringing together. We also have our web search data that we're collecting as well. So in this case, as we're going out, we're kind of collecting all of our scans in here, and we can look at our scan results. So we're going to go out, we're going to collect about 150 metadata attributes we're collecting. All of these are things we can pivot on as well. So again, maybe if I have something like a site like this, hosted on Netlify, hosted on Cloudflare, doing some of those infrastructure pivots, maybe not the best starting point because I am just going to have a lot of DNS records returned. This is a really good way we can do some pivoting based off of the content that we're collecting. So we're going out, we're kind of doing some of this scan cadence as well. And there's a lot of interesting things we can kind of pivot off of in here. So we're doing some of the kind of traditional things we would expect to see, doing things like taking a hash of the body of the page, kind of doing some of that static matching. We have things like certain attributes we're extracting from the page. So the Google Analysis ID we extract, really good one to pivot on to see is anyone copying, using that somewhere else. We pull out JavaScript on the page, good pivot that we can make there as well. And then we get into some of the interesting fields. One of our favorite ones here is this SHV. SHV stands for script hash value. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take all the JavaScript when a page loads. The way we actually do our scanning is we want to look like a regular user browsing to a site. So we want to follow any redirects. We actually render the full page. We'll go ahead, we'll grab that screenshot. But once the page renders, we want to see all the JavaScript that loads. And what SHV here does actually generates a hash based off of all the JavaScript that loads on a page. Really good, easy way we can do some pivoting based on the content of a page. And then a whole bunch of other fun things we extract. Favicons, titles of a page, a bunch of IP data that's in here as well. Servers, headers of a server as well are returned. Same kind of idea in here. So if I look at something like my HHV, same kind of idea. We actually take all the keys from the header of the server that are returned, and we generate a hash based off of that. Really good way for kind of tracking infrastructure. And then just all the way down through title of the page, JARM for fingerprinting, TLS connections, whole bunch of other fun data in here, all the way down to things like cert data as well. So if that's something that we collect or something that we see, we collect all the kind of cert information as well. So generally about 150 or so attributes in here, along with all the DNS attributes that we're collecting. So really at the core, this is a lot of what we're doing is collecting all of this data. And this is where, depending on kind of how we want to work with things, there's a number of ways we can actually use this when we want to kind of start hunting through the platform to see if I have a larger cluster of things I want to investigate. I want to find similar sites, things like that. One of my favorite ones to use. So if I go back to my home page now, sorry, still can't talk and type. One of my favorite ones. If I have something like a scam site, a phishing email that I've received, maybe I want to see what else I can find out there. So I'm going to use this was a scam site. They scammed my wife. I will keep personally using them as an example for a very long time. They were very nice. They refunded the money also, but this is where what we can do now is if I start with a domain, something like this, I want to see there are other sites that are associated with this. So what I can do now is maybe I want to run a live scan first. I want to get the latest up-to-date information. I can run that right from total view. This is going to go out. We're going to actually scan the site with our scanning infrastructure. So we can let this run. This will go out. Looks like it was scanned about a month ago. So we'll rerun the scan. We'll see what's actually out there. We want to make sure we have the latest, title, favicon, all those fun things that we're collecting. And while that's running, we can kind of start to pivot through and see, what else can we start to find? Are there other domains or other sites that they created that are similar that I also want to have a little bit of a grudge against? So in this case, as I kind of look through the history, something interesting shows up where it looks like it is currently on Cloudflare. But if I look back a little bit, it looks like maybe they were on Cloudflare. Maybe they started fronting it with Cloudflare later on. They were on AS Chupa here for some of their hosting. Probably still there. If I had to bet, we see this a lot. Kind of why we like seeing this history view also is you see things like this where you do stand up a site, configure it, and then front it with Cloudflare. So again, kind of why we want to do that active resolution all the time is so we can catch things like this. But this is even if it's an older IP or an older A record here, one of the things that I can start to do is I can pivot on this. And I can say, this 45 IP here, I want to look at it in total view. And what else can I start to find? So are there other A records that I can see? Is this kind of shared infrastructure? And in this case, we do actually find a couple of other things. We see a couple of subdomains here. We have this old .kingcamp outdoors, Keshi.kingcamp outdoors, Keshi.broadout, which I'm assuming is related to it as well, just based off of the kind of naming convention. Even things like kingcampoutdoors.co.jp. We actually found a lot of things pretty quickly. So kind of a good starting point using some of our DNS pivots in here. If I go back to my domain now, you can also just start to look at some of the other DNS records that we have. Maybe there are other things that I want to pivot on. Text records are a really good one to look at. We actually did a whole session once on just on kind of text records and pivoting. You find a lot of interesting things in here. In this case, I've used this one to ruin some of the fun. There's really nothing exciting to pivot on for this site in particular, but again, different threads we can kind of pull at to see, what else can I find across this this infrastructure. Now, one of my other reasons that I actually like this domain, we do have whois data in here as well. So whois data, maybe not always the most useful in 2026, but still actually surprisingly useful as well. So generally, if I'm looking at a domain, this is actually what I look at first because it's usually pretty easy to see. If there's something there that I can use, great, I want to do that. But if not, I'm going to move on. There may not be as much right away. In this case, we do actually have some information in here. And again, one of the things that we can start to do is we can start to do some pivoting in here. So in this case, if I want to say maybe I want to pivot on the name, maybe I want to pivot on the organization because I'm going to bet this is going to return something. Why we want to collect all this data. Again, so we can do this kind of hunting and pivoting across our data to say, okay, we had a couple of the DNS records, we found a couple of domains, maybe a couple of other sites. I want to look on the whois side of things. In this case, again, I can see a handful of other domains that are associated with this organization. So we can start to look in there as well. Whois data, even if it is redacted, sometimes we still like using it if there are maybe certain patterns that we see where maybe you use a particular registrar name server. And if there's like a certain pattern to the way you're registering domains, still actually a widely useful search that we can use. So whois still pretty useful in 2026. But in this case, when it's not redacted, obviously even better, because then we can do a lot of that pivoting to find more domains like we have here. And now the last one, now that our scan is finished, we can take a look. We can see a little bit about what this site is. This way also I don't have to browse there myself. Kind of looks like a nice little site, but I go into my web search tab now. This is where I can do a little bit more pivoting if I want to do a little bit more hunting. We used whois, which is great. We did some of the DNS pivots, fantastic. The last one in here that we can also look at is any of the kind of details in here. So I mentioned some of the other ones, things like the Google Analysis ID for kind of tracking page views. It's actually a weirdly popular one to use if someone is just kind of copying and pasting their IDs across different templates. As we're going out, we're doing all that scanning. Really good way we can just kind of detect some of that. In this case, looks like they kind of set it up okay. Maybe not the best pivot for this site in particular, but always a good one that we can take a look at. I see a lot of JavaScript on a page here as well. This is where, again, we can always kind of search. If you really want to get into it, we can search kind of the individual files. There's a lot of granular things we can do. But the easiest way is we can take this SHV. So essentially, I just want to see, are there other sites that have this exact same bundle of JavaScript? Is this just a template someone reused? We see this for things like phishing kits, where you stand it up, you use it across the entire, different domains, different content, but it's the same bundle. Good search to always take a look at also. Again, in this case, looks like it's just that site that's using it, but always a good one that we can start to use to kind of do some of that pivoting. And then favicon is always a popular one as well. Really good for either doing some hunting or if we're looking for any kind of impersonation. We do some interesting things in here. So we have the just the strict matching on a favicon, so just the MD5. We also have the average that we generate. So even if someone thinks they're being clever, maybe they change a couple of pixels. This is actually a good way to do a little bit of fuzzy searching across favicons as well, the average. So there's all these different ways we can start to do this searching, whether it is things like just the favicons that we can use, the title of the page, all that content is available for searching. And one of the cool things we can do, there's a lot of ways we can build this search out as well. So what do we have? About 9 minutes, perfect. So one of the things we can also do is we can modify our search. So maybe, for example, I want to take something like the title of this page here. It looks pretty specific. But what I want to do is I want to change this up a little bit. Instead of looking for this entire HTML title, we have this contains operator. So there's actually a lot of different operators we can use here across our web search or Whois search. So one of the things I can always do is instead of saying I want to do a strict match, I just want to look for anything that contains this phrase King Camp because maybe there's a different site out there that has King Camp in it. We do all sorts of fun things like writing regex on the fly, write regex for doing either matching or exclusion as well. So if you want to do that, a lot of different ways we can kind of drill into this searching, but again, different ways we can start to do some of that searching where we don't necessarily have to take just a strict string or favicon or title. We can do some of this kind of broad searching as well when we're kind of hunting through this data. So ultimately, there's a lot of different ways we can kind of pivot through the data in Silent Push. We have probably just enough time to go through this example. One of the last ones that I want to run through quickly, close all that out so I don't lose what I'm doing, is this one. Other favorite domain to look at. So this was a phishing email I received, and it was really well done. Ledger's some kind of crypto wallet. Really good phishing email, so well done. I thought I had a Ledger account. Turns out I don't, but I thought I did for a minute, which was a lot of fun for me. So I want to take something like this, and the reason I like this example is, we talk a lot of times about how can we maybe identify patterns, whether that's the content of the page, the registration, the way the domains are being kind of set up with a certain naming convention. And in this case, this one's a nice example to go through because when this one was live also, when I got this email, I went through the same kind of thing. I said, okay, I want to kind of pivot on some of the infrastructure here. I want to see, in this case, I want to do a reverse lookup. What other A records do we have? We can use total view, but in this case, I really just want to know, what are the A records for this this IP address? Not a ton of them, but we do see a couple of them in here. Ledger Recovery App, Ledger Recover Portal, which they spelled wrong, Ledger Notice Portal. You start to notice a little bit of a pattern. Great. That's one way we can start to do some of this searching. The other thing that we can look for in here, if I come into my web search. So as we're kind of going out and collecting all of this content, right away, one of the things that stands out to me is, are you human? Space question mark. Cool. I want to search my web search for that. So I can pivot off of this. I want to see, are there other sites that have this same title? Really easy search I can run. But what this is going to let me do now is now I can start to search and say, what other sites kind of have this title in here? Ledger Dash recovery support. We actually find a whole bunch of them in here. A couple of other maybe unrelated ones that are probably worth looking into. Portal Hub Ledger, Portal App Ledger. We find a lot of things. In the last couple of minutes here, while we're doing this, one of the things you can do is you can also start with like a very broad search like this. So we talked about the last one, just searching King Camp as a title or something like this. Are you human as the title of the page? The neat little trick you can do here is you can actually kind of refine this as well. So if I take, sorry, these all start to look the same to me now. I want to take these two here as the example. So I have portal dash app dash ledger, support dash ledger dash verify. We have these little check boxes on the left. I want to take these two, check both boxes. What I want to do is I want to actually compare these results. So different domains, different IPs. I want to compare the scan results though, because what I really want to do is, if I scroll up to the top, I want to hit this compare button. It's a good search, but it's not that great. If someone else has this title, which I don't know why you would, but if you do, we're going to catch that. And I probably don't care about a lot of things that would match this. But if I refine this a little bit, then I can start to kind of track new sites and new infrastructure matching these patterns. So in this case, we're running a little short on time, but I want to come into my similarities tab here so I can start to say, okay, what else can I add in this case, we talked about the SHV, that kind of bundle of JavaScript. Great. If those are both matching, I want to add this into my web search now. So now I can start to kind of compare different sets of results. If I come down also, we already have the title in here, which is great. Content length is a really good one. Maybe I want to start to add that in. And let's see what else. We'll add in one more. I don't know. These all look pretty good. The other one we have, it's a good time to talk about CHV. CHV is the same kind of idea as the SHV and the HHV, where we're looking at scripts and headers. CHV is based off of certificates, the unique hash that we generate. Let's say we want to use this one as well, because I see it's the same. I want to add this into my search. And really what this is doing, if I close this out, we kind of building block style, just refine our search where we started out with something that's, pretty unique. We want to refine it a little bit more. We want to take some of those attributes and just say, okay, it's a good starting point we had, but now I went from, 400 results down to about 59, and they're all generally related to that kind of ledger site. So different ways we can do some of that searching. We can always do this on the content side. We can do this on the DNS side as well, but different ways we can do some of that comparison, do some of the searching. And again, if I want, these are things we can save in the community version. So if I want to call this looks ledger query, maybe I want to save this and when I come back in, I want to rerun it in a couple of days. I want to see what else shows up, see what matches that pattern. But really, it's that kind of the combination of the two that we can search across as part of the community version. So I see we have 2 minutes left. Let's see. I see one message in the chat. That's just from you, Emily. Cool. I think that's it then. So that's all I had, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks when we get the next one set up. Thanks, everyone.